Hey guys, I hope all is well. Thank you for joining me for this Truth Talk episode. In today's episode, we will be talking about how the CIA created gangster rap. Let's get right into it. In the 80s and 90s, gangster rap was a newly created subgenre of rap music that was growing fast in urban communities. Rappers like NWA, Ice-T, and Snoop Dogg were the faces of this new emerging genre. What made gangster rap different from non-gangster rap was the lyrics and the persona these rappers embodied. In the 70s, when hip-hop was created, it was more centered on having a good time and showing off one's skills. Rappers and DJs would meet up and have giant block parties where the music mostly consisted of dancing and having a good time. This all changed in the 80s when rap groups like NWA were emerging and took over the hip-hop scene and introduced the world to this gritty, violent, and rebellious music called gangster rap. Instead of rapping about having a good time, the lyrics became about rebelling against authority, selling substances to the community, and taking each other out in street beef. This style of music quickly took a hold of hip-hop, something that is still apparent to this very day. Nowadays, it's not called gangster rap anymore. It's just called hip-hop, as just about every hip-hop song out today contains these exact same themes. It's obvious that rap groups like NWA rapping about these themes changed hip-hop forever. But the question is, why were NWA rapping like that to begin with? Most people think that rappers like NWA are just rapping about their environment, what they grew up around, or what they had to deal with growing up in the hood. Their raps were just a reflection of their life that they were living through every day. While this sounds good on paper, the problem with this is that it's truly easy to disprove. If we look at the members of NWA, you quickly notice that none of the members were truly living their raps. Dr. Dre wasn't a gangster, nor was he active in the streets. He actually worked at a club as a hip-hop DJ before NWA. You would often see Dr. Dre at clubs in sparkly tight outfits as he was a part of the world-class wrecking crew. Ice Cube was actually a college student at the time he started working with NWA and wasn't at all in the streets either. DJ Ren was also not a gang member as he was a part of the same dance crew with Dr. Dre. The only man a part of the group who had street ties was Eazy-E. Eazy-E was a dealer and was affiliated with the Crips, but he was far from what he presented himself as in his music. He didn't have any known bodies or bodies people suspected him of having. He wasn't a big street kingpin who was running things either. All he really did was deal substances to his community, but in my opinion, that doesn't make someone a gangster but a dealer. Now, I know some people are going to say it doesn't matter if they were really gangsters as they lived in these environments and saw it firsthand, but how much of these raps were really influenced by what these artists were seeing? If any of you have lived in the hood, you would know that about 90% of what these rappers say in songs aren't a real reflection of living in the hood. I myself was born and grew up in the Bronx, which is easily one of the most dangerous places in New York City. While I did see more than the average growing up and had to worry about more than I would if I would have lived elsewhere, it still doesn't compare to one of these gangster rap songs. I know the 80s were tough, but I can assure you that NWA wasn't rapping about what they were seeing in the streets because they were never truly in the streets. In order for these guys to have seen things like they rapped about, they would have had to be deep in the street life. Nowadays, we see rappers that rap about actual street things they do, and not long after they end up in jail. NWA weren't investigated for their raps because it's all made up to present a specific image. NWA presented themselves as real gangsters. They acted like real gangsters in interviews. They talked as if they were real gangsters, but why? In today's world, when we see the kids rap and acting like gangsters, we know why, because in order to be a rapper nowadays, you have to be seen as a gangster. But back in the 80s, gangster rap wasn't even a thing. What was making noise was party rap. For some reason, a couple of guys who weren't gangsters decided to form a gangster rap group that went on to change hip-hop forever. Was this group of guys able to change hip-hop forever just by chance? Or is there more to this story? Well, according to an ex-CIA agent, John Holston, that wasn't the case at all, and gangster rap actually has a much more sinister start that most are not aware of. Some of you guys might remember me talking about what I call the hip-hop urban legend. Back in 2012, a man going by the alias John Smith wrote an email exposing hip-hop's darkest secret. The email was titled "The Secret Meeting That Changed Rap and Destroyed a Generation." In that email, John claims that he himself was a music executive in the industry back in the early 90s. John states in this email that one day in the 90s, he was invited to a big meeting between record label executives and some rich, powerful investors who were interested in investing in the emerging hip-hop genre. According to John, the reason for this meeting was to brief the executives on these new investors and what they were expecting from the record labels they were invested in. John claims every single person who worked in executive roles in music was at this meeting. During this meeting, John states that these private investors had revealed themselves as men who were also invested in the private prison industry. This is when these private investors explained why they had invested in these labels to begin with. The investors told the executives that they had come up with a plan to maximize profit for their investments. They explained to these executives that they were investors in the private prison industry, explaining they own private prisons that could benefit from rap music. These investors told the executives they wanted them to only sign rap artists who were gangster rappers. The investors explained they wanted to use gangster rap to promote criminality to its audience in order to influence a generation to become criminals. This way, these criminals most likely would end up in a privately owned prison that would make these investors billions. The investors told the executives that this can also lead to plenty of money for them as well, as these private prisons will become publicly traded companies that these executives can invest in the future. So the executives can make money when those influenced by the music end up in one of these private prisons. One person who spoke about this secret meeting was Crazy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony. During one of his podcast episodes, he reads the letter that was sent in the email by John and states that he himself believes this meeting took place in hip-hop.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be speaking about the music business in a good light tonight. Yeah. There's nothing good about these things that we're about to reveal to you this evening. I just want to say to all my fellow hip-hop artists and hip-hop fans that we have been had again. Been bamboozled.
Hoodwinked.
Let us stay, I tell you. A few of y'all might have already heard about this, about how the music industry has very close ties with the private prison system.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because the music business has invested millions of dollars in the private prison system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You heard it correctly. Again, the music business and the entertainment business in general, meaning people who control the media, the music industry, and also private prisons.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me an article, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. I read this article, bro, and I was like absolutely shocked, very shocked. In fact, it was written by somebody that was a decision maker at a major label. He was invited to a very special meeting about the future of hip hop back in 1991. So this meeting, bro.
Now that's a lot for a meeting right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, and this person later on, he said, you know, this person actually ended up leaving the music industry after this happened. A few years after this, he ended up leaving the music industry.
Okay.
And he said, like, you know, over the years, he just felt guilty because he said as he sat back and watched these plans come into play, come to a reality.
For 2 decades.
He sat back and was like, wow, they pulled it off.
Yeah.
They really pulled this off. Like, they were told not to sign any more rappers, any more rappers that had messages in their music.
No positivity.
It was all to be gangster rap music that they promoted and put out.
It's interesting to hear a rapper who made gangster rap talk about this meeting and admit that he believes it happened as well. Crazy Bone has first-hand experience with these executives whom he signed to. He knows what direction they were leading him in. Even though rappers like Crazy Bone seem to believe this meeting took place, it was never confirmed. For years, this meeting has remained just another story that seemed highly possible but wasn't proven. Well, this was until ex-CIA agent John Holston basically confirmed this whole meeting during an interview on a Russian network called NTV. According to John Holston, he claims that he himself worked on this PSYOP covert operation to hijack hip-hop back in the 80s and 90s, claiming that the CIA worked directly with artists like Afrika Bambaataa, who was one of the founding fathers of hip-hop, but most importantly, he claimed that he worked with the biggest rap group in the world that went on to change hip-hop forever, NWA. According to Holston, his agency worked hand-in-hand with these artists in order to push their agenda through these artists. John Holston was quoted saying in this interview, "The government at that time spent big money, serious money, destined to further division and corrupt the American youth to nihilist anti-establishment and anti-American ideologies." According to John, many big hip-hop songs made by NWA were even scripted by a team of psychologists and war propagandists of the CIA, even stating that these psychologists wrote the song F the Police for the NWA and wrote the actual lyrics, "When I'm called off, I got a sawed off, squeeze the trigger and bodies are hauled off." According to John, these lyrics were written to influence the youth consuming this music to be rebellious against authority. This way, they were most likely to participate in criminal activity and land them in a privately owned prison. John also claims they used the same artists to glorify substance use to create addicts, which would again lead more people to private prisons. John Holston claims this PSYOP operation was highly successful, and that part is obvious. He was quoted saying, "We understood at the time that music was a powerful means of propaganda to reach the youth. Our mission was to use teenage angst to our advantage and turn Generation X into a decadent pro-drug and anti-establishment culture that would create uprising and further division within society. We even infiltrated mainstream radio to promote their music and reach millions of people every day. For many of us in the CIA, infiltrating the 1980s hip-hop scene was one of the CIA's most successful experiments of propaganda to date." According to John Holston, he states he worked with some of the biggest music executives in the industry to push this agenda, naming Lear Cohen, who worked with artists like Jay-Z, Young Thug, Slick Rick, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Eric B and Rakim, and A Tribe Called Quest. He is a very important executive in the industry and is currently the head of YouTube Music. John Holston claims he was a CIA asset who worked hand in hand with the agency to be able to push this agenda. John was quoted saying this about Lear: "When it comes to engineering culture, no one touches Lear Cohen." John Holston also claims that the CIA are still involved in hip-hop to this day, claiming that they are now pushing different agendas. He stated that the CIA is now working on emasculating males in society. This is what I call the Little Nas X agenda, and it's obvious it's what's happening. I discovered this all in an article I was reading while doing some research. I ended up finding several articles that talk about John Holston saying this on national television, but I can't find any clips from the interview. Some of the articles that seem to have a YouTube clip of the video had their videos taken down. I searched all over the internet to find this interview, but it seems like it was removed from the internet, at least here in the US. All I can find is articles that quote what John Holston said. It's not surprising to me that the CIA are the ones involved in this PSYOP operation, as the CIA is mostly made up of Skull and Bones members. The Skull and Bones are a fraternity in Yale. I made a whole video on the Skull and Bones. You guys can watch it after this one. In that video, I revealed that the Freemasons actually created the Skull and Bones, and many of their members end up becoming CIA agents. Some even become presidents. Their involvement makes perfect sense and only adds more validation to these claims. It's obvious this is exactly what happened. Hip-hop was used to destroy and imprison the urban communities. They used hip-hop as a weapon to destroy us. So many young kids throw away their lives listening to the music that ends up influencing them. The music turned an entire generation of criminals because the rappers made it look cool. These rappers like NWA were directly working with the CIA and were being used to convince the generation to follow this path of imprisonment. It's easy to see this is the truth. All we have to do is follow the breadcrumb trail. Today, two of the biggest investment companies in the world are BlackRock and Vanguard. Both of these companies are the leading investors in the music industry and the entertainment industry. Vanguard and BlackRock are the top two owners of Time Warner, Comcast, Disney, and News Corp, four of the 6 media companies that control more than 90% of the US media landscape. You know what else BlackRock are the lead investors in? The private prison industry. BlackRock is the largest investors in US private prisons. So these two companies own the music industry, the media companies, and they also own the private prison industry. So it makes complete sense when we see rappers promoting destruction and leading their own people to prison, as this is what they're being paid to do. These companies bought the music industry and media and then use it to lead more people into their other businesses, which is private prison. The proof is in the pudding. Now, what we must do is change this. We must teach the kids coming up about these plans and not let them fall victim to it like previous generations. Teach the kids that them acting like gangsters is really them being tricked by these elite who run the world. Explain to them that it was all a trap and that they don't have to be street guys. Teach them the truth so they don't fall victim to the same manipulation. Recently, one of my good friends just got home from doing 7 years in a federal prison. The feds kept him away from his family for 7 whole years. He didn't get to see his children grow up in their teens. He came home and his daughter was now an adult. My friend was heavily influenced by rap and hip-hop music, just like I was at a point. The music influenced him to be in the streets, and it landed him exactly where the elite wanted him to be. We need to show the kids that the gangster lifestyle was fabricated by men in the CIA to purposely destroy them. Let's not let them manipulate us again. Let's show them that we know the truth. Well, that's it for this video. But before you guys go, I just wanted to let you guys know, I just released some new Truth Is merch. Winter is here, and I know it's getting cold out there, so I had these new beanies and hoodies made. For the next few weeks, this The Truth Is beanie and hoodie will be available for purchase over at my Truth Is store. I also created a sale for you guys to get 10% off each purchase using code The Truth Is. I love these beanies and they go perfect with this new The Truth Is hoodie. If you want to support the channel by buying a hoodie or a beanie, hit the link in the description to order yours now. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.